So welcome to our Q&A of #OCDbfing, a podcast hosted by Maternal OCD with Dr Chrissy Jayarajah. So, Dr Jayarajah, please tell us all how you got interested in OCD.
Thanks, Maria. So, as a junior doctor and a trainee psychiatrist, I worked at the National OCD and BDD, or Body Dysmorphia Disorder Service in southwest London. It's the only 24-hour inpatient unit in the UK, and it has the severest OCD that you can imagine, and it's where I truly understood how OCD is such a disabling disease, but at the same time that it's a very treatable disease with a combination of psychological and pharmacological therapy.
And so what sparked your interest in perinatal OCD?
That's a great question. I love working with women, and perinatal psychiatry ticked all the boxes for me. It has the medical complexity of managing medication during pregnancy and breastfeeding. And I think it's got fascinating psychological dynamics of the mother and baby relationship, as well as the social aspects of working with women during a pivotal life transition on their journey to motherhood.
Well, we're obviously biased, but we're so pleased that you've chosen this as an area of interest. So tell us a bit more about #OCDbfing.
Yep, so #OCDbfing, it's a shortened form for OCD breastfeeding, so BFING. And it's really exciting, actually. I was doing my own little research project on a medical literature review of the treatment of postnatal OCD using our standard medical searches. And unfortunately, at the time, I couldn't find out much information, as there's hardly any specific evidence-based studies looking at breastfeeding with OCD. So what I did is I do what most people do, and I googled OCD breastfeeding, and I found that this was an active topic of discussion online, and as well on forums such as Mumsnet. And then my research took a whole new spin, and I started to look at breastfeeding online through an online exploration. At that point, I contacted Mumsnet, who gave me consent to include their forum discussions as part of the study. And it was so insightful because the discussions are all anonymous, so mothers were much more open than they would be in a clinic room setting with professionals. And at the same time, I also got in touch with Maternal OCD and OCD Action on Twitter, and that's how we started to do the Twitter Q&A campaign with the #OCDbfing was conceived.
So it's probably helpful now for me just to explain a little bit about how it worked. And just to say again, Dr Jayarajah, we were so delighted at Maternal OCD to be approached by you and to really pursue what we know is a very neglected area of perinatal OCD. So OCD Action and ourselves advertised the Twitter hour. We used the hashtag on purpose so we could really capture all the involvement. We had some key questions and we designed them to help guide the interaction. And if I can paint the picture for you, it was a rainy evening in the autumn, I'm sure you remember, where Dr Jayarajah, Olivia from OCD Action, Sally, who's a mental health researcher, and myself, we sat together, huddled in front of our laptops and worked as a team to run it. We were so engrossed in the hour, it just felt like it was over in no time. So Olivia in particular from OCD Action has a great deal of experience in this method of communication, and so she took the lead, and we were just really pleased that actually between us all we responded to all the comments and all the private DMs too, which shows us that some people actually wanted to talk to us offline, not just online. So Dr Jayarajah, if we think about what we found from that Twitter chat.
Yeah, absolutely. So the common fears that were discussed in the chat were symptoms of OCD, but not just any symptoms that were very specific to breastfeeding, such as unwanted sexual thoughts whilst you're breastfeeding the baby, also the fear of contamination whether that be through use of bottles or fear of contractable diseases, or the fear of the baby being harmed by creams specifically created to apply on the breast during nursing. It was fascinating finding. We also found this through our Mumsnet Forum study. Another aspect that we talked about on the Twitter chat was discussing the thoughts and fears around breastfeeding, and that women feel a lot of pressure to breastfeed, and how if they can't, for whatever reason, it can feed into their worries of feelings of guilt, which makes or made their OCD worse. We know that OCD can be a very disabling disease, and it can lead to an avoidance of people and places. A few mums talked about how they would avoid going to mums groups or breastfeeding support groups because of their fears of contamination. And it was such a shame because, you know, they really expressed that they want to go to these groups, but they just felt that they couldn't. We also had a dad with OCD that took part, and he mentioned how watching his wife breastfeed triggered his own OCD fears. And that highlighted that it can affect the whole family. Very few women feel comfortable to talk about their symptoms openly because of the fears that they may be misunderstood and their child be taken away.
So another common question that we get at Maternal OCD, and we've touched on it a little bit during the Twitter live chat, is can you take medication during breastfeeding?
That's a great question, Maria. It's a question that I get a lot in clinic as well. Not just from service users, but also from other health professionals too. There is a very common myth that you cannot take any medication during pregnancy and breastfeeding. And through all my research and speaking to women, there is a sense that they feel they have to choose. So either they can take medication and are well, but then sacrifice their desire or want to breastfeed, or they breastfeed and then they feel so low and they're struggling with their mental health issues without medication. And obviously this can make things a lot worse. But the good news is that we have medications that are safe to use during pregnancy and breastfeeding. All medications, as we know, all medications have side effects, but there is a very real side effect of untreated OCD and untreated mental illness. I think it's really important, if this is something that, you know, rings true to you, or something that the listeners are worried about, I think they should definitely talk to their doctor, and not just that, ask to be referred to a specialist perinatal psychiatrist or a general psychiatrist to discuss this further. I've also made a poster specifically looking at medications use in breastfeeding, and I'm more than happy, Maria, to put this on the Maternal OCD website.